Episodio 1. The Wedding. The flowers are everywhere. White roses, eucalyptus, candlelight in every corner of the ballroom. 240 guests in their best clothes, champagne in every hand. The low, warm hum of people who have eaten well and drunk enough to believe, for one evening, that everything is fine. I am sitting at the head table in a dress that took 4 sessions to build and cost me 3 months of savings. Ivory, structured, precise. And I look out at this room and I think, this is supposed to be the happiest night of my life. I keep thinking that. Like, if I think it enough times, it will become true. Daniel stands up. He has just taken the microphone from Greg Holloway, who gave a perfectly good toast. Warm, the right length, appropriately funny. The room laughed in the right places. Everything was fine. Daniel was not supposed to speak. I watch him tap the mic, grin at the room. 240 people grin back. That is the thing about Daniel Harrow that took me 4 years to fully understand. He walks into any room and the room immediately decides it likes him. He does nothing to earn it. He does nothing to maintain it. He simply arrives, and the room reorganizes itself around him the way a magnetic field reorganizes iron filings, automatically, completely, without being asked. I fell for that. For 4 years, I fell for that. He has had 4 drinks since 6 o'clock. I stopped counting after dinner. I know this version of Daniel, the one that gets loose around the edges, where the performance of being a good man requires slightly less effort than usual. I told my guys I was getting married, he says. Voice easy, warm, the voice of a man who has never once doubted his own welcome in any room. And they said, Daniel, are you sure? And I said, listen, I know she's not exactly what you'd put on a magazine cover. There it is. The room goes into that specific frequency, not silence, not loud. That particular uncomfortable frequency that happens when 240 people process something unexpected all at the same time and have to decide individually in real time what to do with their face. Don't move. Don't flinch. Don't give him anything to read. But she keeps me grounded. Some people laugh. Greg laughs. The nervous kind. 4 of Daniel's investors laugh. The relieved laugh. The laugh of people who have been handed an exit from the discomfort and have taken it gratefully. Rachel, Daniel's sister-in-law, table 7, looks across the room at me with an expression that says everything she cannot say out loud. I know, I see it. I'm sorry. My mother sets her champagne glass down, doesn't drink, doesn't look at me. She looks at the tablecloth because if she looks at me right now, she will cry, and she knows I don't want that. My father, Thomas Weston, 63 years old, civil engineer, Parkinson's diagnosis 18 months ago, finds my mother's hand under the table, says nothing. Daniel feels the room shift and does what Daniel always does when he senses he may have miscalculated. He doubles down. I mean, look at her. He gestures toward me. 240 people look at Claire Weston at her own wedding reception as her husband of 4 hours gestures at her body like it is the punchline to a story he is telling about himself. Don't give him the reaction he doesn't even know he needs. She cleaned up pretty good, right? Wider laughter. Relieved laughter. The laughter of a room that has been handed permission to move on and has taken it with both hands. Daniel raises his glass. To my wife, the smartest, most grounded woman I know, and proof that I've always had better taste than Marcus. The room raises its glasses. The toast is complete. The microphone goes down. Daniel sits beside me with the deep, comfortable satisfaction of a man who believes he has just given a warm and honest speech about how much he loves his wife. He genuinely believes that. That is somehow the worst part. He turns to me, puts his hand on mine. I look at him. Really look. for the first time tonight without the filter of hoping he is who I decided he was 4 years ago. I lean in close enough that only he hears. That will cost you, I say. Not tonight, but it will cost you. He laughs, thinks I'm joking, kisses my temple. I pick up my champagne glass. I smile at the room. I am not joking. Claire Weston does not joke about load-bearing walls. The kickoff meeting. 12 people around a conference table. I am 11 minutes into my structural assessment when the door opens. He is on his phone. Mid-sentence. He doesn't sit down, just moves around the room shaking hands without breaking his call, like a man so comfortable in any room he doesn't need to perform arrival. Then he hangs up, looks at me. I'm sorry, he says. Keep going. I want to hear all of it. He means it. I can tell he means it. That is what took me a long time to properly understand about Daniel Harrow. He was not entirely performing. The charm was real. The intelligence was real. The interest in that specific moment was real. What wasn't real, what I would spend 4 years not fully seeing, was the part of him that would have stayed if the charm hadn't worked. But I didn't know that yet. I keep presenting. He keeps listening. And something in that room shifts. The way a load shifts when a wall comes down. Quietly, completely, without announcement. Wait, but before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand who I was before that room. Because the woman standing at that projector 11 minutes into a structural assessment when the door opened, she didn't come from nowhere. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, only child of Thomas and Margaret Weston. My father was a civil engineer who talked about structures the way other fathers talked about sports, with passion, with precision, with the deep satisfaction of a man who had found his language. My mother was a mathematics teacher who ran our household with the same efficiency she brought to a classroom. Everything in its place, every problem solvable, every equation eventually balanced. I was not, by the standards of my peers, easy to understand. Quiet in the way that gets misread as cold. Precise in the way that makes insecure people nervous. Plus size, from childhood, in a world that had very strong opinions about what that was supposed to mean about a person. It meant nothing to me. At 17, after one particularly brutal semester, I made a decision. I would not spend my life apologizing for existing in the body I had. That decision cost me. It always costs you something. Choosing not to perform smallness for people who need you small to feel comfortable. But it built something in me that couldn't be built any other way. A density. A gravitational quality. The thing that people who meet me always say first, when asked to describe me. She walks into a room like she already owns it. I didn't learn that. I earned it. I studied architecture at the University of Oregon, graduated top of my department, turned down 2 firms in Seattle and 1 in San Francisco to take a junior position at Caldwell and Associates in Providence, Rhode Island. My mother thought I was making a mistake. My father looked at the decision for 30 seconds and said, "Go, the work is what matters." He was always right about the things that mattered. Victor Caldwell was 61 years old and had the temperament of a man who had spent decades doing extraordinary work that most people would never understand, and had made complete peace with that. My first week, he watched me walk a structure before I touched a single drawing. He didn't say anything. End of month 3, he called me into his office. "You have the rarest thing in this field," he said. "You see the failure before it happens. Most engineers see it after. Some never see it at all." I thanked him. I walked back to my desk. I did not smile until I was alone in the parking garage. Then I sat in my car and let myself feel it for exactly 4 minutes. Then I drove home and went back to work. By 30, I was lead architect on the most demanding project in our portfolio, the structural rehabilitation of a former federal courthouse in downtown Providence. Adaptive reuse, a 100-year-old building that a developer wanted to transform into mixed-use residential and retail. The developer's name was Daniel Harrow, and now you know who was standing in that room when he walked through the door. 2 days later, my phone rings. "I have a question about the load calculations on the eastern facade," he says. He doesn't have a question about the load calculations. I know it immediately. I find it charming anyway. That was my first mistake. "Sure," I say. "Which section?" Actually, a pause. A slight smile in his voice. "Would it be easier to discuss in person?" There it is. "I'm available Thursday afternoon," I say. "Thursday's perfect," he says. I hang up. Look at my phone for a moment. Don't do this. You know exactly what this is. I did not know well enough. Not yet. We date for 4 years. Year 1 is almost perfect. He flies to Portland 3 months in, meets my parents, sits across from my father, and doesn't try to impress him, just listens. Asks genuine questions. About engineering, about structures, about what it means to build something meant to outlast the people who built it. My mother is cautious. Margaret Weston has always been cautious about men who arrive with flowers and leave before the dishes are done. My father shakes Daniel's hand, holds it a moment longer than necessary, looks at him steadily, and says, "You seem like a man who gets what he wants." He meant it as a compliment. It was also the most accurate diagnosis anyone would ever make of Daniel Harrow. He was a man who got what he wanted. And what he wanted, then, was me. In year 2, I start noticing the small things. The way he introduces me at his investor dinners. "This is Claire. She's an architect." Not. "This is Claire, the lead structural architect on my Providence project." Not. "This is Claire, the person who found the foundation error that would have cost me $3 million to fix after the fact." Just an architect. Like I design weekend cottages for people in the suburbs. I notice it every time. I file it every time. I don't name it yet. His friend Marcus comes to town in October. Dinner, the 3 of us. Midway through the main course, Marcus turns to me grinning. "Danny always had a type. But I gotta say, you're not what I expected." He says it like a compliment. Daniel laughs. Not the laugh of discomfort. The laugh of genuine amusement. I pick up my wine glass. "What did you expect?" I say pleasantly. Marcus grins wider. "I don't know. Someone more. You know, Danny's picky." "That's very kind," I say. I smile. I let it go. I do not forget it. Year 3. Dinner at James and Rachel's house. After dinner, Rachel and I clear the table. She sets 2 plates in the sink and says, without preamble, "He talks about your work like it's a hobby." I look at her. "When he introduces you to his investors, Claire is an architect. Not Claire is lead structural architect on the Harrow Providence project. Not Claire is the reason that building is still standing. Just an architect. You design houses for people in the suburbs." I stack a serving bowl. "I've noticed," I say. "Does it bother you?" "It's his insecurity," I say. "Not mine." Rachel looks at me for a long moment. "You're the most composed person I've ever met," she says. I hand her the bowl. I think composed is what people say when they mean they can't read you. I think I am going to need every bit of it. The proposal comes in Charleston, a rooftop, sunset over the harbor. A ring that is exactly what I would have chosen because he asked my mother and my mother described it precisely. He gets down on one knee and his eyes are wet, and in this moment, he is not performing. He is completely, genuinely in love with me. I say yes. I say yes because I love him. I also say yes because I have decided the cracks are manageable. I have miscalculated the depth. 8 months into the engagement, 3 months before the wedding. My father calls on a Thursday evening. His voice has that flatness underneath it that I recognize as the voice he uses when he is working very hard not to worry me. It's progressing faster than they expected, he says. The tremors. They're adjusting the medication. I'll be fine, Claire. I sit down. I stay on the phone with him for 40 minutes. I keep my voice steady. When I hang up, I sit in the kitchen for a long time. I don't cry. Not yet. Not until I can do it properly, alone, without witnesses. Daniel comes home at 9. He sees my face. He doesn't ask. He doesn't fill the silence with reassurance or questions or the performance of concern. He just sits down beside me, takes my hand, sits there. For 20 minutes, we just sit. He doesn't say anything. He is simply there. That is the moment I want you to understand, because that man existed. The man who sat beside me at 9 o'clock and held my hand without saying a word because he understood that sometimes presence is the only language that works. That man was real. I did not imagine him. I did not fall in love with someone who never existed. He was also, simultaneously, everything else. That is what makes this story hard to tell. Not the betrayal. The coexistence of the betrayal with something that was genuinely, completely real. He made dinner that night. Nothing complicated. Pasta, a salad, a bottle of wine he'd been saving. He set a plate in front of me and said quietly, "He's going to walk you down the aisle. That's what matters right now." I looked at him across the table. How do you carry both of these things? The man who says that and the man who moved his assets 6 weeks before your wedding? How does he carry them? How have I been carrying them? I said. Thank you. He nodded. We ate. I have thought about that dinner many times since. Not with anger. With something more complicated than anger. With the specific grief of loving someone who was never entirely what they appeared, and knowing that the parts that were real were real. The hotel suite, 11:30 at night. Rachel, Naomi, Diane, all asleep. My mother sits on the edge of my bed and says the things she has been not saying for 3 days. I want to ask you something, and I want the real answer. Not the one where you protect me from worrying. I put down the book I'm not reading. Ask. She looks at her hands, then at me. Is he good to you? In the ways that don't show up when other people are watching? When it's just the two of you and nobody is performing for anyone? I know the answer. I'm deciding how much of it to give her. He's not unkind, I say. My mother hears what I didn't say. She nods, doesn't push. She was married to Thomas Weston for 35 years. She knows when a structure has already made its decision. She kisses my forehead. Goes to bed. I sit in the quiet and look at the ceiling. He's not unkind. True. Also the most damning thing I've said about him in 4 years. And I am marrying him tomorrow anyway. Because sometimes you are already inside the building when you realize the load is wrong, and you make a calculation about how much longer it will hold, and you stay. Until you don't. October 14th, cold, clear. The kind of autumn morning in New England that looks like a painting and feels like a warning. Priya arrives at 10 with the dress. She spent 4 sessions with me understanding not just measurements but load, where I wanted to feel held, where I wanted to feel free, how the body moves when the person inside it is completely certain of herself. The result doesn't look like a dress designed for a plus-size woman. It looks like a dress designed for Claire Weston. Those are not the same thing. Rachel zips it up. She looks at me in the mirror and is quiet for a moment. Then, he doesn't deserve this dress. He doesn't, I agree. Claire, I know, Rachel. I know exactly what he is. I have known for a while. Today is still happening. She looks at me. Why? I meet her eyes in the mirror. Because I need to be inside it to understand the full structure. And because some things you have to build from the inside. She doesn't fully understand that yet. She will. My father is at the church. He stands at the top of the aisle wearing the suit from his own wedding 38 years ago. When he sees me, something moves across his face. The specific expression of a father holding two truths at the same time. Pride so large it has nowhere to go. And grief, not for what is ending, but for what he already knows is coming. He offers me his arm. His hand trembles slightly. His grip is completely steady. He leans in. Whatever happens, he says, you already know the answer. I don't ask what he means. I already know. Daniel at the altar. Whatever he is, whatever complexity lives inside him, in this moment, watching me walk toward him, he is in love with me. I see it. I believe it. I still believe it, even now. Love was never the question. Love was never the thing that failed. The thing that failed was something harder to name and far more dangerous. The quiet, foundational belief that his love for me did not require him to fully respect me. Those two things, love without respect, can coexist for a very long time. They did. The toast is over. The room has gone back to its pleasant hum. I dance with my father. He doesn't say anything. He just dances with his daughter at her wedding, slowly, his grip on my hand steady while everything else trembles. That is enough. That is everything. Later, Daniel finds me by the bar. He puts his arm around me. Hey, he says, you look beautiful tonight. Thank you, I say. I meant what I said in the toast, about you keeping me grounded. He means it. He always means it in the moment. I know you did, I say. He kisses my cheek, moves toward a cluster of investors, becomes immediately the most magnetic person in that corner of the room. I watch him go. I think Daniel Harrow is a builder. He built an empire from nothing. He built a reputation that opens doors. He built a version of himself the world looks at and says, that man has everything. What he never understood is that I am also a builder. And I am about to start building something he will never see coming. He falls asleep at 11:30, satisfied, completely untroubled. The sleep of a man who has no idea anything has changed. I sit in the chair beside the bed and look at him for a long time. Then I open my phone. I type 2 words. Look at them, delete them, type them again, leave them there. Find everything. The honeymoon, Iceland, 10 days, Reykjavik, then south, then the West Fjords. The landscape is extraordinary. All that ancient indifference, the mountains and the glaciers doing what they have done for 10,000 years, completely unbothered by human problems. Daniel is attentive. He holds my hand at every waterfall. He orders my coffee exactly right without asking. On day 2, we hike to a glacier. We stand at its edge. Daniel takes my hand and says simply, I'm happy. He means it. In this moment, he is genuinely happy. I hold his hand. I look at the glacier. I am building a list. 3rd night, hotel in Vic. Daniel asleep by 10. I sit by the window and watch the Icelandic October sky. that permanent half-dark that is not quite night and not quite day, and I conduct the structural assessment. The way you survey a damaged building, systematically without emotion, looking at what is actually there rather than what the facade suggests. In 4 years, 7 occasions, Daniel made a comment about my body to other people. Not always cruel, sometimes affectionate in intention. The dinner with Marcus. A comment to Greg Holloway at a launch event. A joke to James at a family dinner. Always without my permission. Always without telling me. As if my body is a feature of his life that he has the right to narrate. Item 1. He does not believe he needs my permission to describe me to others. That is not a habit. That is a belief about who I am to him. Item 2. 3 times in 4 years, Daniel used my professional reputation to close investment deals. Without telling me. I found out twice through Rachel. Once through Greg, who mentioned it in passing like it was common knowledge. My name, my work, my professional standing, built over a decade of doing the most technically demanding work in the region. Used as a selling point in rooms I was never in, for deals I was never consulted about. Item 2. He believes my professional value belongs to him to use as he chooses. I fall asleep in the chair. On the flight home, Daniel sleeping beside me over the North Atlantic. I open my phone. I look at the 2 words. Find everything. 3 weeks after the honeymoon, Tuesday evening, Daniel comes home late, kisses my forehead, opens his laptop on the kitchen counter while I make tea. He goes to shower. He leaves the laptop open. I am making tea. The inbox is visible from where I stand. The name Sonia Breck is in the subject line of a thread with 17 messages. I look at it for 3 seconds. Then I look away. Then I look back. You're sure you want to do this? Yes. I read the most recent message, then the one before it. Then I scroll to the beginning. December. 11 months before the wedding. 4 months before the proposal, 3 months before the dinner in Charleston where he got down on one knee and cried real tears. I read the entire thread in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Then I close the laptop exactly as I found it. I pick up my tea. I go to the living room. I sit down. I do not cry. Not because I don't feel it. I feel it. The specific weight of 4 years reorganizing itself around a new center. But crying is something I do alone when it's finished. It isn't finished yet. What I feel, primarily, the thing underneath the betrayal, underneath the anger, is confirmation. The feeling of a calculation you ran months ago that you didn't want to believe and now have to believe because the numbers are right in front of you. Sonia Breck, 31 years old, interior designer, contracted, officially, by Harrow Development to handle the residential interiors on the Providence Courthouse conversion. My building. The project that was the beginning of us. The affair started 11 months before the wedding. It continued through the engagement, through the rehearsal dinner, through every vow he wrote. Through the night he held my hand in the kitchen because my father was getting worse, and I needed someone to stay. Through that night. When he falls asleep, I go back to the kitchen. I open the laptop. I read the thread one more time. Slowly this time, not for information, but because I need to understand the texture of it. And in the 4th message, a Thursday in February, 8 months before the wedding, he had sent her a photograph. Not of them together, not something explicit. A photograph of the courthouse, the eastern facade, my eastern facade. The one I had spent 3 weeks redesigning after I found the load error, He had sent her a photograph of my work with a single line underneath it. She fixed it today. Building's going to be beautiful. She. Not Claire. Not my architect. Not the woman I'm going to marry. She. Like I was a detail in the margin of his own story. I close the laptop. I sit in the kitchen in the dark for a long time. Not because of the affair. I already knew about the affair. Because of the photograph. Because of that single word. She. He had been standing inside something I built, something I had fought to get right, something that had cost me weeks of sleep. And I was just she. That is the moment I understood what I was going to do. Not just the divorce. Not just the legal case. The building. I was going to take the building. Daniel comes out of the shower, pours a glass of water, sits beside me on the couch. "Good day?" he says. "Good day," I say. He turns on the television. I lean against his shoulder. The warmth of his arm around me is completely real. That is still the worst part. When he falls asleep, I photograph the rest of the thread. All 17 messages. All 43 sent emails. Then I open his calendar. September 14th, 6 weeks before the wedding. AW. Restructuring lunch. 12:30. Confidential. Confidential. You do not mark a lunch on your personal calendar as confidential unless you are keeping it confidential from someone with access to your calendar. Someone like a wife. Someone exactly like me. Arthur Weiss. Attorney. Business restructuring. Asset protection. I search his name in Daniel's email. Nothing. He was careful about that. I search restructuring. One email. Personal account. Sent 2 weeks before the wedding. Subject line, RE. Harrow Development LLC. Phase 2 transition. Body deleted. Subject line still there. Phase 2 transition. I keep searching. Contracts, partnership agreements, archived folders. And then, buried in a folder labeled Archive 2019, a document. A Delaware LLC operating agreement. Single beneficial owner. Not Daniel. A name I don't recognize. Monica A. Harrow. I stare at that name. Monica A. Harrow. I have never heard Daniel mention a Monica. I photograph it. I file it. I don't know what it means yet. But I will find out. I close the laptop. I go to bed. I lie next to my husband in the dark and I look at the ceiling. In real estate development, when a business owner restructures assets before a major legal event, a merger, a lawsuit, or a marriage, they are moving assets out of reach. Out of reach of someone who might one day have a claim. Someone like a spouse. Daniel Harrow restructured Harrow Development LLC 6 weeks before our wedding. He loved me. I am certain of that. He also, in the same breath, protected himself from me. 6 weeks before the altar, before the vows, before the ivory dress and the 240 guests, and his hand trembling as he cried. He loved me. He also made absolutely sure that if loving me didn't work out, I would get nothing. That is the real betrayal. Not the affair. Not the 11 seconds at the microphone. The premeditated, attorney-assisted, legally structured decision to protect his empire from his own wife. Before she was even his wife. His breathing slows. He is completely asleep. I look at the ceiling for a very long time. And then I decide. Not out of rage. Not out of hurt. Out of something colder and more precise. He built something. I am going to take it. Every single piece of it. Floor by floor. The way I build everything, slowly, precisely, without announcing what I'm constructing until it is finished. 36 days between the discovery and the first meeting with the attorney. I want you to understand those 36 days. I go to work every morning. I run 2 projects. I answer emails. I eat lunch with Naomi on Tuesdays. I come home every evening. I make dinner. I sit on the couch with my husband. I watch television. I sleep beside him. He notices nothing. 2 weeks in, he comes home excited. Meridian Group called, he says. They want to increase their exposure on the courthouse project. Another $2 million. He leans against the counter. I was thinking, if you're willing, I could set up a call where you walk them through the technical specs. You know the building better than anyone. If they hear it from you, they'll be more comfortable. I look at him. He thinks he's offering me something. He is offering me something, just not what he thinks. Of course, I say. He smiles, relieved. You're the best, he says. Kisses my forehead. I smile. I pick up my book. I add it to the list. One evening, 3 weeks in, I am at my desk working late when he brings me tea. Just sets it beside my laptop. Doesn't interrupt. Doesn't ask to be thanked. Goes back to what he was doing. I look at the tea. I think, how do you carry both of these things? The man who brings you tea and the man who moved his assets 6 weeks before your wedding? The answer is, the same way you carry any structural problem. You acknowledge it exists, you map it precisely, and then you decide what to do about it. 36 days after the discovery, I call my father. Thomas Weston picks up on the second ring. Claire. Dad. A pause. He already knows. Not the details, but he knows my voice the way he has always known when something is structurally wrong. Tell me, he says. I tell him the structure, the asset restructuring, the attorney, the timing. He is quiet for a long moment. Who is the best real estate litigation attorney in Rhode Island? I don't know yet. I'm finding out. When you find out, he says, call me before you call them. I want to be in the room. You're in Portland. I'll get on a plane. Dad, you're not doing this alone. That is not how we do things. I close my eyes. Okay, I say. Patricia Lowe, 54 years old, partner at a litigation firm in downtown Providence, specialist in business law, asset disputes, and matrimonial property cases involving complex business structures. I find her through Naomi. I call Naomi at 9 on a Wednesday. I need Patricia Lowe's number. A pause. Claire. I know, I say. The number. She gives it to me. Then, do you need me to come with you? Not for the first meeting, but thank you. Claire. I'm fine, Naomi. A pause. I know you are, she says. That's what worries me. First meeting. Conference room. 4th floor. My father on my left. He flew in from Portland the night before. He doesn't say much. He doesn't need to. I present everything. Organized, chronological, no editorial commentary. Just the structure. Patricia reads it in 14 minutes. Asks 3 questions. Then she sets the document down and looks at me with an expression that contains, in equal parts, professional assessment and something that takes me a moment to identify. Respect. He restructured the LLC 6 weeks before the wedding, she says. Yes. You have documentation. Yes. And the affair, documented, began 11 months before the wedding. Yes. She is quiet for a moment. Ms. Weston, what outcome are you looking for? I look at her. I need to understand the full picture first. What he moved, how he moved it, what's accessible, all of it. Then I'll tell you what I want. Patricia looks at me for a long moment. That, she says, is exactly the right answer. My father's hand closes briefly over mine under the table. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. Patricia brings in David Chu, forensic accountant, quiet, meticulous, the kind of man who finds things designed not to be found. 6 weeks. I continue living my life. Work, lunch, home, dinner, television, sleep. Daniel notices nothing. He notices nothing because I give him nothing to notice. This is the most useful thing he has ever given me, accidentally, without meaning to, the complete and total underestimation of who I am and what I am capable of. He handed me that weapon himself. Every time he said just an architect, every time he used my name without asking, every time he looked at me and saw someone who would stay small, he built the weapon. I am simply learning to use it. 6 weeks later, David Chu's office. He lays the spreadsheet in front of me. Over the previous 3 years, Daniel diverted investor funds from the Providence Courthouse conversion into a parallel development entity registered in Delaware. Beneficial owner, not Daniel, his brother, James Harrow. Amount diverted, $4,300,000. Investor exposure beyond documented amounts, $11,700,000. Legal exposure for Daniel, total. I look at the numbers. I think about Rachel at that dinner table. He talks about your work like it's a hobby. She had known something was wrong. She was just looking at the wrong wall. Is James knowingly involved? I ask. As a recipient, yes. As an architect, no. Based on everything here, he believed what he was told. I nod. And the name Monica A. Harrow, I say. What did you find? David opens a second file. Monica Harrow was Daniel's first wife, married for 11 months, divorced 6 years ago. The LLC in her name was opened during their marriage and never dissolved. She may not know it still exists. I look at that file. Monica Harrow. I file it. I will come back to Monica Harrow. I need to make a phone call, I say. To your attorney? David asks. To Rachel Harrow, I say. Rachel picks up on the third ring. Claire? Her voice has the quality of someone half expecting a call they hoped would never come. I need to meet you, I say. Without Daniel knowing, without James knowing, just us. Long pause. Is James in danger? She asks. Not. Are you okay? Not. What happened? Is James in danger? She was always precise. Yes, I say, but not the way you're imagining. I need 1 hour. When? Coffee shop in Barrington. Saturday morning, Rachel arrives first. 2 coffees already on the table. She looks at me, running the assessment, not liking what she's calculating. You're not angry, she says. That's what scares me. I was, I say. I finished. I open the folder, place it between us. Read the first 3 pages, then I'm going to tell you how to protect James. She looks at the folder, looks at me. He's going to lose everything, she says. Not a question. Daniel is, I say. I push the folder closer. Read. 6 minutes. When she finishes, she sets it down carefully, the way you set down something you're afraid to break. She looks at her coffee. Doesn't drink it. How long have you known? About the restructuring, 6 weeks. About the investor diversion, 3 weeks. About the affair, her head comes up. 3 weeks after the wedding. She closes her eyes. I'm sorry, she says. Don't be, I say. I need you focused. Here's what I need. What I need is the Delaware operating agreement. James received it 18 months ago. He printed it out and stored it in a folder because James stores everything he doesn't understand by printing it out. Rachel knows this. Rachel knows everything that happens in her own house. If I give you that, she says, what happens to James? He gets ahead of it. He talks to my attorney. He discloses. He cooperates. He returns the funds with interest. He loses some money. He doesn't lose his freedom. Silence. And Daniel? Daniel made choices, I say. James didn't. The law understands the difference, but only if James moves first, and quickly. She looks at me for a very long time. You could have burned this down without protecting James. I could have, I say. Why didn't you? I look at my hands. Because James didn't do this. And Rachel, you told me the truth at that dinner table 2 years ago. I didn't listen properly. That's not a debt I let sit. She is quiet. Then, he idolizes Daniel. This is going to break something in him that doesn't come back. I know, I say. She nods. She picks up her coffee, finally drinks it. I'll get you the document, she says. Rachel picks it up 3 days later, drives to Patricia's office herself, sits with Patricia and David for 2 hours. James comes the following week. He cooperates fully, discloses everything, signs a sworn statement, returns the funds. He calls Daniel one time. 4 minutes. Rachel tells me later that James never raised his voice. He just said, I trusted you. You used me. I'm not going to protect you from what that means. And hung up. Daniel Harrow is in a site meeting when his phone lights up. His attorney. He steps outside, takes the call, listens for 90 seconds. That's not possible, he says. His attorney says, Daniel, it's happening. The filing is comprehensive. Every asset restructuring move, every wire transfer, every investor with undisclosed exposure, the forensic accounting, James's sworn statement, the operating agreement Rachel retrieved, all of it, organized, cross-referenced, airtight. This is not a divorce filing, Patricia tells me the morning it's submitted. This is an architecture. I smile. The real smile. The one from the ceremony. Daniel's attorney calls within the hour, offers a settlement. I decline. Calls again, raises the number. I decline again. Third call. Patricia lays the number in front of me. Claire, that is significant. It is worth considering. I look at the number. I don't want his money, I say. She waits. I want the courthouse project, I say. Patricia goes very still. His entire stake, I say. His investor relationships, his equity position, his name on the building. I pause. Which we will be changing. Patricia looks at me for a long moment. Then she picks up her pen. Tell me exactly what you want the counteroffer to say. 3 weeks. Daniel's attorney argues the investor relationships can't be transferred. Patricia points out that 3 of those investors have already confirmed willingness to transfer, the moment they understood who had actually built the building they put their money into. Victor Caldwell made 2 of those calls himself. He said it simply. Claire Weston is the reason that building is standing. Daniel Harrow is the reason it's a legal problem. Make your own decision. They made their decision. Daniel Harrow signs the final agreement on a Thursday morning in February. His equity stake, his investor relationships, his financial disclosure, his structured repayment plan, in exchange civil restitution instead of criminal prosecution, on the basis of James's full cooperation and complete restitution. Daniel is not prosecuted. He is, however, finished. His reputation does not survive the disclosure. His remaining projects lose financing within 90 days. His business network, 15 years in the making, evaporates. The way things evaporate when the foundation is gone. Suddenly, completely, without announcement. On the day he signs, I am not in the room. Patricia asked if I wanted to be. I don't need to watch it, I said. I need to go to work. I spent that Thursday at Caldwell and Associates in a meeting about the next phase of the courthouse conversion. Now my project, my name, my equity, my building. I came home that evening to the apartment I found 3 weeks after the filing. Small, south-facing, good light. I made tea. I called my father. It's done, I said. Thomas Weston was quiet for a long moment. Are you okay? He asked. I thought about it. Honestly. I will be, I said. That's the right answer, he said. 18 months later, the Providence Courthouse conversion opens to the public. The building is renamed. Simply, accurately. Weston Building, Providence. I am here an hour before anyone else arrives. The workers have gone. The caterers haven't set up yet. The guests won't come for 60 more minutes. It is just me in the building. I walk through it slowly. The restored federal courtroom. Oak paneling, original plasterwork ceiling, new structural reinforcement invisible behind the historic surfaces. Invisible. That's the point. The best structural work is always invisible. You never see what's holding things up. You only notice it when it's gone. I stand in the center of the main hall. I look up at the ceiling my father taught me to read. The way load distributes. The way pressure finds its path through stone and wood and steel. The way a building breathes. And I think about Thomas Weston. He died in April, 6 months before this moment, peacefully in Portland, with my mother beside him. Before he went, I told him the building had my name. He said, "Of course it does." I stand here, in this building that was almost taken from me by a man who thought he understood the structure better than I did. A man who stood at a microphone in front of 240 people and told the room that his wife was not what you'd put on a magazine cover. As if that were the measure. As if that were ever the measure of anything. He was wrong about the magazine cover. He was wrong about the body. He was wrong about the silence. He was wrong about all of it. But most of all, he was wrong about the building. It was never his. The guests will arrive in an hour. My mother will stand in this hall and look up at this ceiling and not say anything for a long time. Rachel will be here, alone, which tells its own story. Naomi, Patricia, David, Victor Caldwell, Priya, who built the dress, Diane Torres, who never once offered unsolicited advice. 217 people will walk through these doors today. Daniel Harrow will not be among them. He left Providence 4 months ago. But right now it is just me, and the building. And the building holds. I designed it to last 100 years. It will. There is one more thing. 3 months after the opening, a call comes into my office. A woman. She says her name is Monica. Monica Harrow. She says she found my number because she was looking for someone who knew Daniel Harrow. She says he did the same thing to her. And then she says, "But I found something in the Delaware documents before he could close them down. Something you need to see." It changes the story. All of it. In episode 2, Monica Harrow, what she found, and why Daniel Harrow has been doing this for much longer than either of us knew. Don't miss it. Sweet Revenge. While you slept, Sweet Story Revenge.